A secret outlaw race across the country is a favorite movie subject, complete with chase scenes, explosions, and crazy antics.
What in the hell was that?
You've probably seen one of these movies, but did you know
I'll take care of this one.
they were based on a real-life race?
Oh, hello, Hot Pants. I don't suppose you have a driver's license tucked down in there somewhere, do you?
This is the story of the Cannonball Baker Sea to Shining Sea Memorial Trophy Dash. Let's start with the race itself. What was the Cannonball Baker Sea to Shining Sea Memorial Trophy Dash? It was a race dreamt up by Brock Yates, an automotive journalist working at the time for Car and Driver magazine. The race started in the Red Ball Garage in New York City, finished at the Portofino Hotel in San Bernardino, California, and was hot-wired together with chicanes, gasoline, chicanery, and caffeine. There were no rules other than a gentleman's agreement that you had to drive the entire distance and you couldn't switch cars. As for the name itself, Sea to Shining Sea refers to the nation-spanning nature of the endeavor. Memorial refers to the doom coming down the road for high-performance cars and fast driving. A trophy dash is a short race for the top qualifiers in sprint car racing, tacked on to contrast the thousands of miles of the actual event. And then there's Cannonball Baker. The man set 143 speed records driving motorcycles and cars in the time between wagon trails and interstates, when America was stitched together with a patchwork of pavement and dirt roads. He started in 1914, driving an Indian motorcycle cross-country in only 11 days. He placed 11th in the 1922 Indy 500. He was the first commissioner of NASCAR, and his greatest accomplishment was driving from New York City to Los Angeles solo in only 53 hours. This last feat is where the inspiration for the race came from, and its name. Now we know what the Cannonball was, but why was it? According to Mr. Yates, the idea came to him as a protest, as a sort of rebellion against all the changes and loss of freedom going on at the time. The Clean Air Act of 1971, Ralph Nader, and later on the oil crisis and the hated double nickel speed limit. Did you know that at one time the most common speed limit outside of cities was reasonable and prudent? Here's a quote from Mr. Yates himself. A few months before my idea for a race, Congress passed a massive legislation sure to turn our muscle cars and sporty machines into padded prams with all the visceral passion of a pint of yogurt. The Clean Air Act gave the automobile industry 6 years to clean up 90% of all toxic exhaust emissions. Worse yet, we were sure the new Environmental Protection Agency and Occupational Safety and Health Administration were bound to unleash legions of nanny-state bureaucrats onto us with the sole mission of herding us into a mass of spineless, subservient humanity, obedient to the will of Big Brother. Brock and Dan Gurney, who was a professional race driver who had raced and won in Formula One, Indianapolis, Can-Am, Trans Am, and Le Mans, where he started the tradition of spraying champagne on the podium, won the first race in 1971. And here are some of their thoughts. Here's a quote from Brock. Gurney and I were arrested once. We passed a highway patrolman who was having a dawn cup of coffee at a roadside cafe. He never saw the Ferrari, but the rush of sound triggered his pursuit. He overtook us when we stopped for gas, having run his Dodge patrol car up to 140 miles an hour to make the arrest. Now then, why did he arrest us? Standard answer, you broke the law. Why are there speed laws? Standard answer, to promote safety. If we were being unsafe at 120 miles per hour in a machine so eminently safe I cannot express to anyone who has not driven a Ferrari Daytona, then what about the patrolman careening along at 140 miles per hour in a gussied up four-door? Was he not compounding the hazard, if we accept his argument that our speed was automatically unsafe? But is this not elitism at its worst? Here we are seeking justification for one of the world's greatest drivers, driving probably the best passenger car ever built at 120 miles an hour on public roads. But not everyone is Dan Gurney behind the wheel of a Ferrari Daytona, the rebuttal goes. Of course, that is true. But should we not aspire to those levels of excellence in both car and driver, rather than settling back to accept the level of mediocrity whereby everyone is assumed to be incompetent? This is the basic objection I have to the mentality of the so-called safety brigade of today. We are being led to standardize at a shockingly mundane level, a level that will drive the Dan Gurneys and Ferrari Daytonas off the road. This is akin to eliminating French cuisine because it's too rich for the masses, or suspending basic scientific research because it doesn't have any immediate practical application. If we do not seek perfection in any given field, regardless of cost or risk, we will inevitably be cursed with the ordinary. Although I risk damnation by every liberated thinker to so state, all men are not created equal, and I resent the egalitarian balderdash that we must grovel towards the lowest common denominator to attain stability. Dan Gurney. Dan wasn't going to participate, but... And then fate intervened. My wife Evie was called away to Germany, taking our baby boy with her, to be with her dad, who had been diagnosed with a virulent form of cancer and had only a short time to live. Sitting at her dad's bedside, she told him about the planned Cannonball cross-country race. He encouraged her to tell me he thought it was a splendid idea, that life is short. Carpe diem. Well, it took only a phone call from overseas, and I was on a plane to New York, determined that I was not going to race, and wouldn't drive any faster than was prudent under the existing conditions. I was going to be responsible and courteous, and concentrate on driving in a stealthy manner. The latter, of course, was a little tough to do in a midnight blue Ferrari Daytona. So it was clear from the start, this wasn't a race for the fastest time, but rather a combination of open road adventure, but more importantly, defiance against big government and Big Brother, melting right into the 70s protest culture. Here are the results of the 4 Cannonball races. The 1971 Cannonball was won by Brock Yates and Dan Gurney in a Ferrari Daytona in 35 hours and 54 minutes. In 72, Steve Baer, Fred Olds, and Bill Canfield finished first in a Cadillac Coupe de Ville in 37 hours and 16 minutes. In 75, it was Jack May and Rick Klein in a Ferrari 246 GTS in 35 hours and 53 minutes. In the final event in 79, it was David Hines and David Yarborough in a Jaguar XJS in 32 hours, 51 minutes. Shenanigans and events from the actual races. The very first Cannonball was a solo practice run by Yates, Steve Smith, Jim Williams, and Brock Yates Jr. in a hopped-up Dodge van with Krager SS wheels and a wing on the roof. It took 40 hours and 51 minutes, 314.5 gallons of gas, and 36 Mounds bars. Dan Gurney was quoted as saying, "We never exceeded 175 miles per hour." One group ran the race in a rented Travco motorhome. They weren't the fastest, but they were the best fed.
Hi, guys. What's up?
What's up?
Huh?
You guys are running 120. Your little lights are flashing all over the place. That's what's up.
We got a patient in there.
Well, there's not a hospital within 50 miles of this place. Where are you headed?
UCLA.
But if she's that sick, why didn't you fly her?
We have to ask the doc.
What's going on out here? What is this crude interruption?
The patient, why can't she be flown to California?
Cysts on the walls of her lungs. Very rare. You see, airplanes are only pressurized at 10,000 feet. Now, anybody knows anything about medicine knows that she can't fly, she has to be driven. We couldn't even go through Denver, it's so high.
I want you fellas to take it easy.
Yes, Yates and crew actually pulled
We
this
sure
stunt,
do.
and it worked. There were multiple vans with huge gas tanks.
Look, I've been figuring. With 200 gallons of gas back here, we don't have to make one damn stop, not one.
One team entered with a driveway, delivering somebody's car in exchange for expenses.
No driving after 6 p.m. Not to exceed 55 miles per hour.
Like the movie, those rules were broken before they left Manhattan.
You're bonded?
Of course.
I'm so excited to run in the Cannonball.
Me too. I think the limo is the perfect stealth car.
The Pink
Oh
Lady's
my
Cadillac
God!
limo rolled over. The doctor grimaced in horror as he looked at me and stepped back, only to learn that my green face and hands were due to the dunking I'd received from the limo's porta potty. One team dressed in priest outfits, thinking that would get them out of any tickets they ran into along the way.
Thank you, good sisters. May the good Lord take a liking to you, but not too soon. Bless you, my children.
Those guys are more juiced up than that Ferrari. Out of the car, both of you. Now.
It didn't work. And a few lunatics even attempted it on a motorcycle. Cultural impact. The race inspired several movies, including Cannonball! The Cannonball Run, The Cannonball Run 2, Speed Zone, and the Gumball Rally, and it added the concept of an outlaw road race to American culture. In fact, if you know about the Cannonball, it's probably from one of those movies rather than an account of the actual race, unless you're a gearhead. It framed the personal freedom versus big government control debate and gave the anti-establishment side all the cool cars, clever tricks, and amazing stories. It romanticized cross-country driving, turning it from a boring slog
I'm trying to concentrate on the road.
into an amazing adventure, if you just imagine yourself in the Cannonball. From the automotive culture side, its biggest impact is probably embodying the freedom and personal expression that car culture feels is under threat from big government and regulation. Why it unraveled, according to Brock. I'll start with a quote from him. Early in 1980, I made a trip to Sarasota, Florida on assignment for Playboy, and during a break visited the home of Terry Bernius, a successful local contractor who had run a modified Lotus Esprit in the 1979 race. He was a pleasant fellow with wide racing enthusiasms and escorted me to his garage, where a lethal-looking, all-black Lamborghini Countach sulked in a corner. That's what I'll use to win the next Cannonball, said Bernius. I looked at the car, recalling the 170-mile-per-hour rush Gurney and I had made across Interstate 10 a decade earlier. It was one thing for a world-class driver like Dan to run a machine at those velocities, and another thing entirely to let a rank amateur loose on the public highways with a wild machine like that. I immediately thought, no you're not, because I've run the last Cannonball. Things that contributed to the unraveling. Traffic enforcement. With the advent of instant-on and photo radar, laser, and for some strange reason, aircraft in Ohio.
Think of the fact that there is not one state in the 50 that has the death penalty for speeding, although I'm not so sure about Ohio.
Sneaking past the cops at high speed became increasingly difficult, especially when small towns figured out they could balance their whole budget by putting one squad car on their little section of the interstate. The exponential increase in litigation. At one point, the SCCA offered to sanction the actual Cannonball race. Nowadays, that would give them all immediate seizures and probably get every form of insurance they have canceled. The drastic overcrowding of the highways. These cars represent the about 90 million cars on the road in 1971. And this represents the 290 million cars on the road in 2024. But there are now people trying to duplicate the original race. Why that's a bad idea, and why nobody outside the original 4 races will ever have a Cannonball record. Why it's a bad idea. The obvious safety concerns, including running at sustained high speeds in completely uncontrolled conditions. Drivers who may have little or no experience or training. Cars not built to any sort of standard, and a huge increase in traffic since the time when the race was originally ended. But the biggest one for me is involving innocent people who not only haven't agreed to be in this race, but don't even know they're in it and the danger they're being exposed to. For me, since the recreations strip away everything but the elapsed time, there's no value in it, because it doesn't require any driver skill. There's no threshold braking, there's no cornering on the edge of adhesion, there's no finding the perfect line, there's no racecraft in passing another driver. Just caffeine, peeing in an empty Mountain Dew bottle, and dodging cops.
I'm getting this all over my hand!
Why no one outside the original 4 races can ever have a record. I'll start with a little quote from Brock. I resented others plagiarizing an idea that I had created and nurtured. Petty of me, perhaps, but I choose to ignore other copycat races and to this day cannot even remember their names, their drivers, or their results. The original Cannonball was a combination of camaraderie and protest. Modern records are just copycats and ignore all of that context. Brock didn't let just anyone enter the race. Today, speed laws are generally pretty reasonable, so there isn't anything to protest. It's Brock's race and he's gone. Therefore, it's not being run. And that means you can't just jump in a car and drive from New York to California and claim you set a Cannonball record. It's history. What you can do instead. Get involved in real racing. Do something simple. Do an autocross, or a rallycross, or a track day. Go to the local drag strip on streetcar night. Do a time, speed, and distance rally. Or find a kart track and race somebody, head to head. Doesn't matter if you win or lose, you'll have a blast. Get involved in larger scale racing, like with the Sports Car Club of America or the National Auto Sports Association. Go drag racing in the NHRA or IHRA, or even try drifting. Or, if you're an off-road type, race with Score or Best in the Desert. Try something cheap and endurance-oriented. Enter a car in the 24 Hours of Lemons or Champ Car Racing. There are plenty of speed records that take place on closed courses. You can pick a record from an organization like the Southern California Timing Association and break it at a storied place like the Bonneville Salt Flats, the Texas Mile, or Pikes Peak. Make your own Cannonball Run, just don't try to break any records. Drive from coast to coast, stay off the interstate and on the 2 lanes. Avoid all the chain restaurants and only eat at local joints. And hit every roadside attraction and experience the country. Or, if you want to create your own cultural moment by protesting modern stupidity in traffic laws, create a group drive of solo drivers in an HOV lane.
If you enjoyed this video, here's another one you'll love.